Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 6 and our overview of the Judiciary, Chapter 9. But first, before we begin, I just want to mention a couple of things. And just to remind us all to have our Canvas settings set so when I do post something new on Canvas that you're alerted of it. And I think you can do this by going into the settings. You have the user guide on Canvas on how to do that. If you haven't set your personal email to receive announcements in real time, make sure you do so. Otherwise, you will be asked to find out about new information posted. You'll have to log in regularly, which you should be doing it anyways. But this is just a way to get it on the spot. So beyond that, I just want to wrap up where we've been and where we're going from week 5 into week 6. Last week, as I mentioned in the video, I noted that I would have a bonus discussion post. Not mandatory, but it was an opportunity for you all to get some extra points based on an assigned reading on Professor Michael Tesler's introduction into his book on Obama is Most Racial. Some of you responded with great posts and analysis of it. So that was good. You've already received your grades on that. As we move forward, our next discussion post will be due on Sunday, October 1st. So that is at the end of week 7. And when we're engaging in Michelle Alexander's work on the New Jim Crow, which you have the PDF up, and Chapter 1, not the entire book. So this is a very groundbreaking bestseller by law professor and author Michelle Alexander. And on this note, if you have, this is not required, but this could be. Okay, as I was mentioning, one thing that will be helpful in helping us understand not only Michelle Alexander's work, but the entirety of the formation of American government, but specifically the prison industrial complex, or on this concept that she calls the mass incarceration. If you all have Netflix, please search the documentary 13th. I think this will be very helpful. It's a very well done documentary, just won an Emmy Award this past weekend, if that makes any difference. But it was also an Academy Award nominee earlier this year. But it really chronicles what is detailed in Michelle Alexander's work. And I believe that you can still watch this for free, even if you do not have a Netflix account. So you can try to search that. If not, it's Netflix. The documentary is titled 13th by film director Ava DuVernay. And so that'll be helpful, but not required. So that's where we're going in this next week and a half. Okay, so it's Chapter 9 and Michelle Alexander, and that's what we're taking on. I will be jumping in next week also to provide an overview of Michelle Alexander's work. But for now, the judiciary. So here we go. And so just to go back here, as I was looking over these slides on the law and the courts. And these are helpful points to really understand the structure of law, right? And specific cases which established the structure of the courts as you're going through your text. And here is a map of the layout that you have in your textbook and on the PowerPoints that you have available. But one case I want to point us to, and a key concept into understanding, is this concept of judicial review. So this is as defined here in the slide, but this stems from one of the most important Supreme Court cases in our history, if not the most important Supreme Court case, which is Marbury v. Madison, which is detailed in your text in 1803. This was a ruling led by, in the majority opinion given by Chief Justice John Marshall, who was a Federalist, who served as Supreme Court Chief Justice from 1801 to 1835. So it spanned about 34 years and led the direction of the court and highly centralized its power and the power of the national government. But what Marbury v. Madison did was give the Supreme Court the power to establish itself as the domain in which to review any law. So when you're examining the Supreme Court today, and the Supreme Court will be in session on many controversial cases this fall, is where do they get that power? So now you know where to point to. It is Marbury v. Madison that gives them the legal ground on which to interpret the constitutionality or unconstitutionality of any law made in the land at the local, state, or federal level. Okay? And as we move forward, I also want to think about how is that Constitution interpreted. And one thing I want to point out is the Supreme Court Justice. In this chapter, you're reviewing questions of justice. So how is justice defined? How is it rooted in our Constitution? And how is it interpreted? Well, one thing I just want to add here is that it's dependent upon the belief system of the judges, right? Every Supreme Court justice from day one to the present has been informed by their biography. That informs their rulings and their interpretation. But two distinct schools of thought exist upon this, and that is those who are strict constitutionalists, or those who believe that the Constitution must be read and interpreted within its original intent by the framers in that historical context. Others believe that the Constitution is a living, breathing document and should be placed in the context of its times. So, in relation, we're interpreting the case in fall 2017. We should be driven. Justices should interpret the Constitution within the realm of our society, not with moving back to and trying to examine what was the original intent of the framers in interpreting a contemporary case, so to speak. Okay, so those are key elements that I really want us to focus on in this chapter, but also think about some of the cases that are laid out here that set precedent. Precedent is another case that establishes how law is interpreted. So once a precedent, meaning how a case was established, and we interpret a contemporary case based on a predecessor or the establishment of precedent. And two cases that were laid out here, when we're looking at Plessy v. Ferguson in 1896, which establishes what now Michelle Alexander will call Jim Crow, right? Racial segregation by law. This ends and overturns that precedent, at least by law, with Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. So I want us to focus upon these things and also make sense of Michelle Alexander, but more importantly, to understand how society is functioning now based on the legalities of and the structure of our juridical branch. Okay, so for now, I will leave you there. You have this table. One thing I just wanted to update on this chart, of course, we have Neil Gorsuch, who was nominated by the current person sitting in power, because it is the power, the president has the power to nominate, the Senate has to confirm, and we know we have now our 9th Supreme Court Justice this year, Neil Gorsuch. So on that, I will leave us for now, but I just want to, again, invite you all to send me an email. Come visit me office hour. We can do virtual office hour. Any questions you have, please shoot them my way, because it'll help me clarify where we're going, where we're headed. But again, if you're ever in doubt on what is due at what particular moment, it is the course syllabus, which is posted right up front in Module 1. Review the course syllabus, review the specified dates, and if you're on campus, please come on in so we could talk about your paper topics. If not, we could do that virtually, because that's something we don't want to leave till the end. Okay, and I'll also be sending out notifications of campus events. For instance, tomorrow, part of our Constitution Day events here on campus, tomorrow at 12:30 in the Student Union, Professor Mickey Huff will be providing a talk on fake news in post-truth America. So you're free to come to that. That's an event if you're here on campus. Find an event in your neighborhood and let me know, and I'm sure that will be fine. Okay, so goodbye for now. Have a good one.